Good morning, everyone. Lee Henson here, president and founder of AgileDad. It's time for today's edition of the Daily Stand-Up. Without any further ado, let's get started. So today we are going to continue on our MythBusters adventure. We are excited to bust some myths, blow some holes into things, and really talk about Scrum in a way, or Agile in a way, that makes sense to organizations, right? So our fifth myth, that was kind of fifth myth. I sound like Mike Tyson. So our fifth myth is agility is simply Scrum applied at scale. Okay, so I want to read that one more time because that almost sounds like the beginning of a joke, right? So these two guys walked in a bar, and one of them said to the other, agility is simply Scrum applied at scale. Oh my goodness. Did I just read that? No. Agile and Scrum are two completely different things. Scrum is one of a ton of frameworks that are part of an Agile umbrella. So if you think about this in a way that I teach it in class, if you think about Agile as a tool chest, Scrum might be the number 2 Phillips screwdriver. It's the one that you use the most often, the one that you apply most frequently, the one that makes the most sense, the one that really, you walk away saying, yeah, I dig it. I can use that for a lot of different things. But it doesn't replace a hammer. It doesn't replace a saw, right? And I think that people who come in and say, we're going to have enterprise-wide business agility by applying a scaled version of Scrum. Okay, look, agility is not the same as Scrum. Scrum is only one of the dynamic Agile models that emphasize team collaboration and flexible reassessment of plans. And it's inspect and adapt. It's the empirical process. It's being transparent. It's understanding the 5 values. It's applying focus and openness and respect and commitment and extreme courage. Use the force, right? It's about using the force and applying the force. That's Scrum. Agility is so much more than that. Agility incorporates things from design thinking, where we're trying to be inventive and inquisitive and think about, does this ideation make sense? And we're trying to really dig down and come up with new and innovative ideas, right? Agility also speaks to creating an MVP and doing discovery, design, figuring out what makes sense before you actually commit to building out all the features in more of a Scrum-like fashion. Scrum certainly falls in the build-out area where you can build out all the different features, but if you're just jumping straight to Scrum, you're missing some very key elements of business agility, period. Never mind that scaling is here. So, I wanted to talk to you about, the sixth myth. Oh boy, now I got fifth myth and sixth myth. So the sixth myth that comes up is scaling agility is done by just adding more agile teams and more pilot projects. These two fit hand in hand together. So I'm going to cover both of them together. What I can tell you is this. Many organizations, when I walk in, they say they're interested in scaling. And I express to them just how excited and happy I am to hear that, because I am ready to help them descale. And they look at me like I'm crazy. I'm happy to help them and excited to teach them how to reduce the number of things they have in progress at any given moment. I want them to cut back, fold back, reduce the amount of things in flow. Figure out how they can scale down the number of projects that are in motion, scale up the size of their teams, work collectively towards a better solution, and figure out ways that they can get to market faster, increase their revenue, increase their ability to test, and create T-shaped individuals and teams as opposed to I-shaped. And I think that all this ties to not scaling too soon. Now, is there an opportunity to scale at some point? Absolutely. Every large company in the world at some point figures out a way to scale. But I think the myth here is that we can just throw more people at it. So let's go through each one individually. So the first myth says agility is simply Scrum applied at scale. That myth is busted. Scrum and Agile are two completely different things. Agile is a container that contains all the frameworks necessary in order for us to achieve true business agility. Scrum is just one of the many tools used to get there. Moving on. Scaling agility is done by adding more people, more Agile teams and pilots. That would be the same as me saying, I remember when my wife was pregnant with our first child, I got so excited that I invited 8 of her pregnant friends over because I wanted her to have the baby in a month. It doesn't make sense. This concept's called the Mythical Man Month. 9 pregnant women can't have a baby in a month. There's lots of other ways to apply this, but I think that way scars you the most and makes the most sense, right? I think that you can't just always throw more people at a problem. Sometimes throwing more people at a problem, more teams, creates more confusion, right? And I think the reality here is that scaling agility requires more than just additional projects, pilot projects, and it requires a different solution than just throwing people at it. Organizations need to rewire core processes, develop new capabilities, they need to shift their leadership mindset, they need to build a stable backbone for supporting dynamic practices, and most of all, they need to understand that sometimes it's identifying and eliminating debt for the teams that are currently working so that they can remain focused and not allowing outside interference that disrupts the team in order for them to really get their work done. That, to me, if you do those things, so here, how about this? What would you do if I told you scaling agility is done by adding more agile teams and pilots is definitely busted? That is a myth. But what would you do if I said optimization of agile practices in your organization can be done by assessing what you currently have, keeping your teams reasonably sized, reducing the amount of scope of work in progress, and figuring out ways to help your teams on those projects be successful? Wow, that makes a lot more sense. And it's the real way to scale. Once you get that done, then you can add some additional teams and take on maybe another project. But the goal here isn't to have as many plates spinning at once. If that's what you're going to have chaos. And chaos never reigns supreme, right? Chaos never wins. So I think it's important for you to understand that scaling sometimes requires descaling. Adding teams sometimes requires reducing the number of teams. And adding more pilot projects can create more confusion because you're just spinning more plates. I think that the reality is that we need to focus on our organization and make sure we're open and honest in all of our communications, that we're being respectful to the teams that are doing the work and not piling the work on, and we're respectful to the framework, that we're making sure that teams are able to make commitments and keep commitments, and that we're behaving with radical candor and extreme courage and creating an environment of psychological safety where people feel comfortable and confident working. I hope that helps you out. As always, we invite you to visit AgileDad.com where you can learn more about this topic and others. Until next time, we encourage you to stay healthy, stay well, and stay agile, my friends. Do take care.